Hi, Aditya.
Hi, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you too. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. So maybe I should start by telling you a little bit about myself, and then I'd love to also ask you to talk about yourself. My name is Vagdevi Munir, and I'm a
I'm
licensed
glad you pronounced that because I didn't want to get it wrong and I was being a little careful with that. Thank you. Bhagdevi.
yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
Vagdevi, and that's my Indian name, and then Munir is my married name.
That's
And I'm a licensed psychologist in Austin, Texas. And I've been involved with Indie Meme for a few years. I love their film selections, I love their festival, and I'm so glad that they bring movies like yours for the public audience. I think it's incredibly important.
Thank you. That's kind. That's
Yeah.
kind.
So I'd love to hear first your journey as a movie maker, as a filmmaker.
Uh, man. I've been a novelist for a while and people don't read much. So if I realize that if there's something that you want to say and if you as an artist want to engage with society in something that you either seek to change or start a conversation about, even at a very small level, then it seems to make sense to make films. That's where I came into filmmaking, really. Our first film was about sex workers who kick men out of the system and form a cooperative in Bombay to run a certain part of the sex industry themselves for women and by women. So
Nice.
that was a story that was a novel initially. And then we made it into a film because I thought that people just watch cinema so much more. Even an indie film reaches a lot more people than a book, a best-selling book. So that kind of was the reason. Reach was the reason. And of course, you still
And it's
stay
sad,
quite
isn't
pure
it?
with your intent. You still keep it small. Still stay quite pure. You don't still don't allow commerce to overtake the point of it. So it's a bit like self-publishing. My novels were all self-published, so it felt the same. Really.
Yeah, I think it's keeping with the times, right? People are much more likely to watch Netflix than they are to pick up a book these days. Yeah. Um, so this movie is about, is it okay to give away sort of the theme of the movie? I think we're going to be
Yeah.
airing this after people have watched the movie. So it's a very, very serious subject. It's about suicide, right? And I'm curious what led you to that particular topic? Is there some inspiration that brought you here?
My wife and I have both lost people to suicide, and so of course it's personal to that extent. But I think it also became about I didn't know. I mean, we finished shooting this film just before the pandemic hit India in a big way. And then for a year, we didn't speak about it because of the Sushant Singh thing, because there was this whole furor. And speaking about a film like this meant someone is going to stand up and say, oh, you're being an opportunist. But our film was already ready. So for
Mm-hmm.
one full year, we just kept quiet about it because it would have been bad timing. We would have just gotten embroiled in the wrong debate because there was this whole thing going on at the point. So that was the journey of the film. I mean, the minute the pandemic happened, in fact, when this incident happened, I realized how important this subject is now, even more important because uh, it's not even gender, class, race specific. I mean, it's wanting to kill yourself is something that happens to absolutely everyone. Uh, and then the pandemic hit, and I started realizing that India is also hiding its numbers of suicide. We don't have figures for 2021. We're in halfway through 2022. You just can't find those numbers anywhere. We're supposed to declare them every year. You had 153,000 people kill themselves in 2020 in India, and the number has gone so much higher in 21 that they've not released the figures. So we started realizing the need for this a conversation on this, that it's become a lot more than when we started making the film. Where we were in Singapore, the numbers became 400% in 2021. So they lost 35 people to COVID and they lost 450 people to suicide. So their real pandemic was suicide, but no one was talking about it. So we started the need for this. But what happened is that uh, OTT platforms in India, because the viewing patterns change. So earlier people were watching films like or series like a Sacred Games or a film like Sony, Ivan Ayer's film individualistically in their house, in their own room. It was a film being watched alone. But the minute the pandemic struck, everyone was stuck at home. So viewing patterns became quite archaic because you had to only see things you could watch with an Indian family,
Mm.
which is why you see that big trend shift in OTT platforms and the kind of content coming out, or kind of films and series coming out. And so again, it seemed like time to wait because it wasn't the right time to put it out. Nobody would be they were only put, like when Shah Rukh Khan comes onto Netflix, you know that it's time to wait, because it's not, that's just it. That was it. So this is what's been going on really. We've been waiting, biding our time. I think now is the right time to really start putting film out.
Yeah. So your research, I was going to ask you about that. Sounds like it is difficult to get numbers in India about
Yeah, very,
suicide,
very.
but I imagine that there are a lot of suicide prevention centers. I remember when I was in Chennai, visiting a couple of them, and I'm curious, did you visit any of these centers as you were making the movie?
Yes, we did. We visited Samaritans in Bombay, spent quite a bit of time there.
Mhm.
But of course, I can't say that because I don't know whether they would want to be. I just went there as a regular human being. I didn't even say I'm a filmmaker. I didn't want that. When you say you're a filmmaker, people behave differently. I didn't want that.
True, that's
So I
true.
did go and meet them. I did spend time, and they were very warm and welcoming too. They thought maybe I want to become a counselor. I don't know what they thought. I just said I'm curious to know how it works. I did say I'm a novelist, which is not untrue.
Right.
I had a long chat with them. I spent the whole day there. I went there a couple of times. And the actor who finally got past the whole audition process, we had a very, very lengthy audition process. So Rucha uh, got the part, and then Rucha went herself and spent time at Samaritans and spoke to them separately. I didn't go, so that then they didn't see her connected with me in any way. They saw her as a separate individual coming to find out more. So both people had. Harsh was the only one, interestingly, who didn't visit Samaritans. And Harsh, interestingly, in fact, he said in an interview when she was saying that I can edit some parts out. I remember that in an interview recently, he said that I've always been the kind of person who never took depression seriously.
Mm.
And it's strange that I end up doing a film like that. So I also find many times that actors who come to us, uh, they come to us because the film also seems to be some kind of a small turning point in their mindset. Like when we made Tota Pataka Item Mal, the guy who these four women kidnapped and in Delhi, he was from Jaipur himself. And through the film, one day he came to me and he kind of broke down and he said that I've started to feel how women feel when they're objectified.
Oh,
And he actually went for therapy after that. So it was a very interesting thing. So I think sometimes people come to you also. I mean, the films are very, there's something larger going on all the time. And
oh,
it's a mere
absolutely.
mortal figuring it out. Really.
Well, and it's art imitating life and life imitating art,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
both
absolutely.
both influence each other. I watched the movie with great interest because I am very curious about sort of the development of the characters, and I realized that I thought the movie was going to be about the person who is going to commit suicide. It ends up being as much about the counselor
Yes,
as the
yes.
person who's going to commit suicide. And I thought that, simultaneous development of the two characters really made it very complex and rich, and in some ways, really brought home, I think, a couple of important aspects of working in that industry with suicide prevention, which is that it's not a logical process. I think you see at the very beginning, they're training her to be logical and be in charge and be very cut and dried. And really, you cannot save people's lives if that's where you stay, right? And
Agree.
she, as a very young counselor, really begins to get that. And in the beginning, you think, oh my God, she's breaking all the rules. She's doing all the things they told her not to do. But then, as the movie develops, you realize that without that, he would not have stayed on the phone with her,
Yeah.
right? Without knowing something about her pain, he would not have been willing to share his pain. And so that development of both characters simultaneously was very compelling.
Thank you. And it also brings us to the two schools of suicide prevention. I mean, there may be many, but I do see two schools. One which doesn't make it personal upon, and one which does, and we explore both in the film. Like when I went to research, of course, they said you should not talk about anything personal, and I thought that's very interesting because when I've spoken to suicide prevention counselors in Singapore, which also I had done, some of them do make it personal, and I thought it was interesting that everyone sees it a different way. And also, in that sense, I felt Silence of the Lambs is one of my all-time favorite films in my top 10. And Silence of the Lambs is also about someone who is in school, and there's this line that says, "School's out, Starling," and for Clarice Starling. And the whole idea is that whatever we learn in school, real life is. I mean, you're going to know whether you have the metal for it. I mean, even a Top Gun would, as a film, would do the same. You have school, and then you have real life, and then you have how are you going to fare in real life? And real life, it's only this very inner lamp that is going to, you're going to know whether it gets turned on or not, and whether you can deal with real life. And it's almost also at the end of her first day, when she's about to go home, or when it looks like, okay, the first day, finally the first day is over and there was no danger, and then it suddenly, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was very compelling that she has her own personal story, and then that personal story slowly evolves
Yeah.
through the movie. You get to hear how she came to be interested in this. And then I thought it was interesting that you made him a suicide prevention counselor as well, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I thought that again, the story ends on such a powerful connection between their two lives, both of them having lost
Thank
somebody.
you. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Mm.
What do you want audiences who watch this movie? What do you want them to get?
I want that when छोटा मुंह बड़ी बात वाला है ना, मतलब मैं बहुत छोटा इंसान हूँ, ये जो दिस होल थिंग, ये जो विषय इतना बड़ा है, इतना गंभीर है, मैं बहुत ही छोटा इंसान हूँ, so I see myself as quite a small person in front of the universe, very very small, an iota. And so I feel it sounds strange to say this, but if you ask me what my wish would be that when we have a breakup, we listen to a certain kind of song, and um, when you are getting divorced, you might watch Marriage Story. But there's so much to see. And in India, when you want to kill yourself, there's nothing to see to feel better. And I feel that if this could become one of those films that someone who's in that state of mind can see, and maybe feel better about themselves. And when we were in Barcelona, it's very strange, but in Barcelona and in Bengaluru now, when we won the Fipresci, in both places after the screening, women in there, surprisingly not men, because men probably don't express themselves like that, and that's one part of the big part of the problem. But two women in their 50s or 60s came up to me and said, uh, your film might save someone's life. Now I don't take that too seriously, but I think it's just a nice thing that they felt that strongly for it.
Yes.
And if only when someone's feeling low, like if I have a fight with my friends, or if I'm going through something, I've watched Dil Chahta Hai so many times. But there are so many films. There is Itu Mama Tambian. If there is so many films about friendship. There's Motorcycle Diaries. There's so many films to watch about friendship when you're in that state of mind, or Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, whatever people watch when they're feeling low.
Right.
So I just hope that this becomes that one of those go-to films in Indian cinema over time. Like when Tikli and Lakshmi Bomb became, in its own small way, one of those feminist films that are there in the Milky Way of feminist films in this country. And the same thing is what I hope for this film when it comes to suicide.
Yeah. I think the important message that I got from particularly the male character is that there is always in somebody who is attempting or considering suicide a little bit of ambivalence, right?
Yes, absolutely.
There's a little bit of them that says, is this the right decision? Should I do this? So the fact that he even calls, that very first call, right, is a little bit of a cry for help.
Yes.
And if you can just, I think what also was a nice juxtaposition is all of the professionals are telling her, don't get personal, be in charge, don't reveal personal details. But actually, that's what keeps him on the phone, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
allows him to begin to explore his own ambivalence. And that
Yeah,
ambivalence later becomes about, hey, maybe I can do something for other people,
yeah,
even if there's nobody left for me to live for, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think that's the powerful message is that even somebody who's completely decided has a little tiny piece of ambivalence, and if there's some way to find that and just nurture that idea.
And
Yeah.
human connection, I think, if I have felt, of course I have felt suicidal. In fact, I tried to kill myself last year for the first time. Strange, we were talking about art imitating life and life imitating art, and
Wow.
it was because my asthma was really bad, and someone sued us, and both our films were taken off Netflix because some actor had hummed 15 seconds of some song, and very random things. I mean, it's almost like sometimes you think that so much of our life
Oh,
is
yeah.
circumstantial. uh, but it was not premeditated. I ran towards the balcony and then touched the railing. I realized, I came to my senses. But if I if it had happened 2 seconds later, I would have regretted on the way down. So it was a very strange thing. And that made me introspect so much about life that it helped us to move to Germany. And we kind of, I thought it was a very freeing experience in some sense. It's a very strange thing to say about suicide. I mean, if you don't kill yourself, it may really free you because you've gone to such a low point. Um,
You
Sorry, I
faced
don't know
death.
why I said that.
No?
But you were saying something, and then I remember that I felt like saying this. So it's not even like I'm coming at it from a very textbook place. I'm coming at it something that I understand. So I'm saying that everyone feels that tendency, and yeah, I just hope that if people, we also have numbers of suicide prevention centers at the beginning of the film for India. I just hope that, as you said, if this film touches that ambivalence, and if that makes someone either reach out to a relative or by the end of this film, also because it's about human connection. Why we don't kill ourselves even when they're really low is because we have people we love and they're going to be really affected by it. So I think that is a very big thing which the film kind of puts out. It kind of makes you realize that, okay, but what about the other people also? So we are interconnected. We live in a web of connections as human beings. The collective unconscious is a reality. And if when you do something like that, other people are also have to go through an entire lifetime of pain. So of course, I'm not saying live your life for other people, but it is a good motivation to not do it. So I think that's also something the film talks about in some sense.
Well, I'm so glad, I'm glad that you shared your own personal journey, because I think that really puts a whole new context on the film. Like, you
Yeah.
really are sharing something of yourself in this movie.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
do want to say, if I may, one caveat or one caution is that anybody watching this movie that has lost someone through suicide, I would not want them to feel guilty, like they didn't
Yes,
somehow
no,
catch something,
yes,
because I think even though there is that possibility of catching somebody and nurturing their ambivalence, it's also true that a lot of people are not
yes.
available for that in the end. You know,
Unfortunately.
they've crossed over into that decision. So I think it's one of those movies that is bound to touch at least half the audience personally, in any audience that you, because it's such a human experience, right? And such a painful experience. So, yeah.
Great. How much time do we have left? I'm just asking because I wanted to add a little bit about the making of the film. Do we have a couple of
Please
minutes?
go ahead. No, go ahead. I think we can
Okay.
edit and take out some
Yes.
pieces and
Fair.
yeah.
Fair. That's fair. I just want to say, so one of the things we did, because I realized that conversation was such an important part of the film, and I knew that if the conversation doesn't seem lifelike, because that's all that holds the film. No, it's like Before Sunrise, and Before Sunrise also you are walking through Vienna, then you're walking through Paris, you're walking through some other place. So there is at least that. The landscape keeps changing. People come in, people go out. In this, that's not there. Um, so what we did is that Harsh he looks like he's on one terrace, but actually we found 10 different terraces across Mumbai. So wherever Rucha was in Mumbai, he was at a terrace which was not more than 100 meters away from her. So
Oh,
after every take, we could meet and talk, and then I could tell one actor something, and I could not tell the other actor, and then things would be improvised, and the other actor would react to it. So that's how every take. So in the film, we've never been able to mix takes. If you've done, we did 22 takes to the first part, and we shot the entire suicide prevention center section in one take. So which was a 27-minute take, and we did it 22 times. But we could never use mixed takes. You can't use something from one take, something else, because I used to keep improvising. I used to get them to kind of change something in everything, and then one knew about it, one didn't. So we kind of worked very hard at making the conversation seem real, because I knew that the performance is the only thing that's keeping you there. There's nothing else. Character development and performance. I have no tricks up my sleeve really as a filmmaker. So just adding this little thing that I mean, if it makes any other filmmaker think twice about how to shoot conversation, that was it.
well, I thought that was actually the most awesome part of it, is that you feel like you're overhearing or eavesdropping on a personal phone call, and it stops being a professional call about 10, 15 minutes into the movie, and just even the lighting, seeing Harsh's face in the phone camera, and then seeing her face in the phone camera, is just, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm on the terrace with them, and I'm
Yeah.
just watching them have this phone call with each other.
Yes, that's true. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Beautiful movie, and really brave, courageous.
Thank
subject matter that you've taken on here. So thank you for doing that.
thank you. In fact, one small thing I'm just adding here, that Aditi, the director of photography, Aditi Sharma, she's been on all my films. She and I got this done together 3 years ago, way before we decided to make a film on suicide prevention. And it's so interesting that both of us have ended up making a film on suicide prevention.
Yeah, interesting, right? Yeah,
That's
coincidence.
all.
Well, it was a pleasure to meet you today, Aditya.
Thank you, Vagdevi.
Yeah,
Glad. The pleasure to talk
really
to you.
enjoyed your film, and all the best to you and
Thank
uh,
you.
all the actors and yes, crew.
Thank you. Thank you, Vagdevi.